Today on Quick Tip Tuesday, we're going to show you how to set up a Mig Welder. Hey everybody, my name's Tay Whiteside. We're down here in the shop at Black Dog Salvage. What I'm going to show you today for Quick Tip Tuesday is how to set up a Mig Welder. In this case, it's a Miller 252 when you first get it. You're going to have to install the torch, or the gun, as some people call it, the tip, the nozzle, the gas, the wire, the rollers, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to walk you through all of that today. So first thing you want to do is figure out where you want to put your welder and how to get power to it. Our building has 220, single phase or three phase. A lot of times they'll come pre-wired if you let them know what kind of plug and power you've got. In this case, it's a big 220, I think they call that a dryer plug, or maybe it might be a welder plug. But anyway, that doesn't matter. What is important is to pay attention to what kind of power you have on your building. So inside here, you'll notice a section here where you can adjust for the type of input voltage you have. In this case, you can adjust. You can have 200 volt input or 230 volt input. Ours is set for the 230 volt input, which is pretty industry standard. All right, once you've figured out what kind of power you have to your machine, you got everything wired up, next is to figure out what kind of metal you're going to be welding, i.e. what thickness, and that'll tell you what kind of wire you need to put in your machine. A really good starter wire is 035. That's what we use here at the shop. You can weld anywhere from 1/16 inch metal if you're careful, on up to 1/2 inch and 5/8, and sometimes even further than that. So right here we got a roll of 035. We have an 035 contact tip, and then we've got the nozzle for the gun. Okay, install the gun. So we'll come over here to the machine. You're going to take, obviously, the other end of it, which has the switch hookup. This is where the power gets transferred to, and then it's got holes to transfer the argon gas down the line. So in this 252, take this into the gun. You make sure this clamp is loose, and you thread it all the way past the seals up in here. Okay, just like that. So if this is a new machine, you want to pay attention to the liner here, which is that coiled piece of metal coming out of the end of the gun. That's actually where your filler metal goes through, and you want to make sure that it's trimmed just beyond this feed roller here. And that's so that there's no gap. If there is a gap, you may have a chance of your wire folding or buckling. So you want to have that gap really close. Okay, once you got that in, go ahead and tighten this clamp down. Get it pretty snug. All right, now while you're there, take the plug that is actually connected to the switch on the end of the torch, and you want to find the corresponding connector on the face of the machine. You push that in, and then tighten the ring up. All right? Next is to install the wire. Now when you get the machine, if it's new or someone set it up like it was new, it's going to have a spring here on the wire hub. This spring is for smaller reels of wire, because if they're half as wide, they're not going to take up all the space on this shaft. If you get the full size reel of wire, you don't need this spring. So put that aside. Now before you mount this on the hub, you want to make sure that the wire is going to be feeding from the top of the roller, because it lines up with the angle of this feed mechanism here. Look at this hole on the back of the wire, and look at this little nub on the wire hub. Go ahead and push that on. That spring out of your way. Line that up. Okay, then you take this collar, spring loaded, put that back on the end. Now, what you want to do is, real briefly, double check the measurements on the outside of these feed rollers. Make sure that they correspond with the thickness of your wire. This is 035 wire. You'll notice that there's 035 on the outside of these feed rollers here. You want to feed your wire in here. You may need a little coaxing from a screwdriver, but make sure it goes into the liner of the gun. Okay? Once you put it in, I don't know, 4 to 6 inches, you're going to want to take this top roller, get that out of the way, clamp it down, and flip this guy back on top. This nut here is spring loaded. You don't want it too heavy because if there is a jam in the liner somewhere, you want these things to be able to slip and not bunch the wire up right here. Okay, so that tension's down, your gun's clamped down, your wire's in, so we're done in here. All right, so go ahead and plug your machine in. We're going to go ahead and turn it on. All right, once you've turned the machine on, there's no gas hooked up yet. So you want to grab the end of or grab the gun, turn the wire speed up, and then just hold the trigger and let the machine feed that wire through the liner. It'll take a minute because it's got to work through all of the liner. There it is. All right. Take your contact tip. Again, make sure that this is 035 or the same as your wire. Slide it over the end of the wire and screw it in. When you change the size of your wire, you need to make sure that you change this tip. Okay, and then pick a nozzle. This is a pretty medium-sized nozzle. All this does is focus the shielding gas around the weld area. I like to get a pretty average medium size. Slide that over, crank it on, and then take some pliers and trim that wire. There you go. In order to get a clean weld, you have to have shielding gas. Now, different types of welders use different types of shielding gas. Stick welding has the flux built in, so it creates its own shielding gas. The most common type of shielding gas for MIG welding, which is what we're doing, wire feed welding, is 75% argon, and argon is an inert gas, and 25% CO2. For TIG welding, you use typically 100% argon, but a 75-25 gas is what we've used on MIG welders for a long time, and it's good for just about everything. So get the size bottle that you think will correspond with the amount that you weld. Obviously, if you're a home hobbyist, you don't need a big bottle like this, but we weld every day, so we got the big boy. But they're all the same. They all work the same. They all use the same regulator. It's just a different amount of gas. So screw this off. And also, if you're ever moving these things around the shop, put this on. Because if this thing falls over and knocks this valve off, you're going to have a bad time. So keep that on. But we're ready to put it on the machine, so I'm taking that off. And obviously on the back of most machines, there's a place to put the bottle. So get this chain out of the way and give it a nice hug. Okay, put your safety chain on, and you're good. Okay, next we need to connect the gas bottle to the machine. Most MIG welders, in fact all of them if you buy them new, will come with a regulator. This is a Smith regulator, came with our machines, very nice and easy to use. So what you want to do, make sure the gas is off. Obviously you'll be able to tell because it won't be leaking everywhere, but take your regulator and thread it into the bottle. Okay, these are, the way that fitting is made, it's brass on brass and it's conical, so you don't need to crank the crap out of this thing. You just need to snug it up with your hand, take a wrench, and just, get it pretty snug. No need to whack on this thing with anything bigger than that, okay? That's tight. Double check the other end of that hose where it goes into your machine. Make sure all your connections are snug. All right, notice on every regulator there is a tank pressure and then a flow pressure. This one shows how much gas is in the cylinder. Typically they're about 1500 psi when they're full, so this one is full. I'm going to crank that open about halfway. Okay, so everyone's got their opinion out there. Like I said, this video is for beginners. So I'm going to give you a typical average flow rate that you can set this at. That's 20 CFH. That's a good average. It's a good place to start. You'll find with different thicknesses and different types of material that you weld, you might want to adjust the flow rate a little bit. But a good starting place is 20 CFH. So make sure your tank is full. Look over here at your flow rate gauge and slowly ease up on your regulator. And CFH is the black numbers on the outside. We're going to get it right up to 20. Now we've got the wire installed, we've got the gun installed, we've got the tip and nozzle installed, and we've got the gas installed, and it's plugged into the wall. All right, you're ready to weld. So the only thing left to do is to set up the machine voltage-wise and wire feed-wise, depending on what kind of metal you're welding. I grabbed some 1/4-inch scrap steel here. I'm going to lay down a quick bead, but first I need to dial in the machine. So I've been welding for 10 years, maybe more, and I still use the chart in the machine sometimes. It's fine. Go ahead and make fun of me. I don't care. But this chart exists for a reason. They figured out how the machine works best with different thicknesses of metal. So open this up here. The material is steel. We're using 75% argon and 25% CO2. So we're in this bracket here, and we're using 035 wire. And I'm welding 1/4-inch steel. So 21 volts, 375 on the feed speed. So 21 on the voltage, 375 on the feed. We're ready to go. Please use a welding shield. I know those badasses on TV like to close their eyes or look away. Use a shield. Okay? And you're ready to weld. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for another Quick Tip Tuesday. I know this video is a little longer, but hopefully I answered some questions. If you prefer to do things another way, keep it to yourself. This was for beginners. This is what works for me. I've been doing this for a while, and I know what works for this shop and my personal welding skills. So hopefully you guys got some good information out of this, and we'll see you next week on Quick Tip Tuesday.